We are a listener-supported public radio station here in Southern California. For music fans, please do your part. If you can, support the cause, support independent and public media now at the SoCalSound.org. We got Tim Heidecker here. Again, my name's Mookie. Hello. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Mookie. That's a controversial name these days. I
No,
don't, I don't know how closely you're following the Dodgers.
well, sometimes I'll see somebody tweet about Mookie, and I'm like, oh, somebody's tweeting about me, and it's not me. But I would love that $300 million contract.
Yes, well, he's underperforming at the moment, so
No,
everyone
yeah. Oh,
we're
you're
all rooting for Mookie, but
yeah, we are. The
thank you.
Mookie name actually came from another musician and comedian. When I was a young intern, Mojo Nixon, I don't know if you know Mojo, but he gave me the
Yeah,
Mookie nickname. Yeah, so like, dude, I wore it as a badge of honor, and I was like, I was just young, and I got a nickname from Mojo, and I was like, I'm a real radio guy. I made it, you know?
I can't. I always confuse Mojo Nixon with the guy from the what's his name from the New York Dolls. That then David Johansen.
Oh, right.
Were they kind of similar vibes?
You know what? I don't think so. I think David
Okay.
Johansen, he went on to, Buster Poindexter,
Yeah,
right? I
Buster
think that was his
Poindexter. Yeah.
alias. Yeah. Mojo did like honky tonk parody songs. I
Okay.
think in the early 80s and stuff, songs like Don Henley Must Die. Um,
Right. Okay.
and stuff like that. But
Who's ever?
you came to the station last year, I believe. I think Julie Slater did the interview. If people want to
Yeah.
check it out, it's online right now. You performed for us, which was amazing. And I think I expressed to you that I have been a super fan in the past, and I thanked you for the countless hours of entertainment. And I am a big fan, but you and I never really got to talk about the music.
No.
Yeah, and you're hitting the road. You got some shows. There's
Yeah.
three. Are you calling it a triangle
The
of,
great. I looked at
Los?
the. Yeah. I don't know what to call it. I looked at the map and it was like there's L.A., Vegas, and San Diego make some kind of triangle, I
Mm.
guess. So I feel like I'm creating a new Western mythology that it's that those three cities are known as the Great Western Triangle, which is not.
I like that. I like the Western imagery and
Yeah.
the tour poster, and it's like back to back to back, man. You could have given yourself a little buffer in between shows. The first one's at the Lodge Room, and then boom, San Diego, and then boom,
Well,
Vegas.
that's how we do. I mean, that's the life on the road. We had done it's kind of a cleaning up the mess tour because we had done a bigger tour earlier this year all over the place, and those are the three places we just didn't hit. And it's um it's hard to, with my band, they're all very busy people and they're all playing with other people and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's we're just trying to do an LA show. I've never played Vegas. I could be a big mistake. I don't know. It could be like, I don't know if people go to shows in Vegas. I don't know what to expect. But I wanted to try it. And then there's always San Diego. There's always San Diego.
Oh, the Casbah
Like,
is,
yeah, it's a great.
legendary punk rock dive joint.
Yeah, I had a very funny experience at the Casbah years ago.
Mm.
I was doing my stand-up character who's a real bad guy, real.
I think I've seen some of that stuff.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, I really lost it on an audience member there in character. And it was one of those things that went viral for the wrong reasons, or maybe for the right reasons, but it was just like everyone just assumed it was a real freak out, instead a real like guy losing it moment that
Yeah,
was
were those
not really
people
true.
previously unfamiliar with your brand of comedy?
I
Those,
think that's, yeah, I think that's what it caught, that wave of people that didn't know the context.
and
But
so I think the character that you're talking about is just a guy who just bombs,
yeah,
but that's what's funny about it.
and doesn't and doesn't understand why the audience isn't there for him.
Sure, it's so good though, man. It's a little cringy, but
Mhm.
you're really tugging at different strings when it comes to that stuff. But again, you build a reputation on comedy, but your music, especially with the record Slipping Away, it showcases a different side of Tim Heidecker, maybe a more earnest side. But you've been putting out records for a while. What really prompted you to, pivot to music?
Well, I guess I've always had it in me and always wanted to, I think even before I was doing comedy, I was making music and, had the high school bands and all that stuff. And put it aside as I pursued comedy, and Eric and I got very busy making stuff.
Hmm.
But there's always music in that work. I was always, either writing or co-writing a lot of the music for that show. So I
Oh.
never really stopped doing music, but I think I felt a little insecure, or my creativity wasn't. I wasn't interested in really writing deeper, meaningful songs, I guess, or didn't really have much to say, I guess.
Hmm.
Or what I did have to say was coming out in the comedy. And then I think about 10 years ago, I had been married for a few years. We had our first kid, Amelia, and I was kind of looking around and saying like, I actually have some ideas and thoughts on music that, I started writing music that wasn't quite comedy. It wasn't really a character. And so I've sort of followed that journey, or just sort of followed that path. And I'm such a fan of guys that can do both, or that people that use can still, like, be funny or clever or witty or whatever in music, but it's not necessarily a character. So
Hmm.
that's how it kind of started, and
Hmm.
kept at it and got, worked with just great people in that world that were fans of mine from the comedy side,
Oh, cool.
you know, and just
When
found
you meet
little
people like
side
that,
stuff.
do they immediately want to joke with you or something?
No, no, no. I mean, it's weird. I don't joke around that much unless I'm with funny people that I love joking around with. Uh, so I'm pretty adaptable to the environment that I'm in, if that
Hmm.
makes any
Oh, that's
sense.
cool. You mentioned your daughter, and she's plays a role on the
Mm.
new record, Slipping Away. Where is she on the album, and are you encouraging her to get into the arts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm letting it happen naturally. I'm not discouraging it. She was just in a musical at this local theater production. It was very cute. She did Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and she was like in the
That's
kid.
great.
Yeah, she's like in the choir, and I mean, you could tell right away, just like anybody could see that she's excited to be, she's got whatever that is that I have, I guess, and performers have, where you just want to be on stage, and so I think she's gonna pursue it, and
That's
but
great.
I'm not gonna, push it on her too hard, and yeah, so the last song on Slipping Away is kind of this very dark, depressing, uh, heavy song, and kind of apocalyptic song. And I just, was finishing it up, and wanted a little coda at the end of it, and wanted to offer a little bit of optimism or a little bit of hope. And I felt a little uncomfortable singing it myself. I felt a little like it was too cringy, too embarrassing.
My
So
goodness.
yeah, I brought her in and said, "Do you want to try singing this?" And she was into it, and she likes. I have a little studio in my garage, and the kids always, come down there and bash away on stuff and make songs. So she's,
Awesome.
her and my son are both growing up, like getting knowing how to make stuff, and
Hmm.
daughter makes little movies on her iPad, and they're pretty good. She can edit and all that
Oh,
stuff.
cool. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, my daughter's 7. She's getting into some stuff. She was in The Lion King at the local Jewish community center. Didn't have a speaking role, but she was a
Oh.
mouse and a hyena, and she loved it, you know.
Yeah, my daughter
Um,
just did Lion King last year, and was Timon, which was
oh, that's
a
cool.
great part. It's a very funny part, and she could be funny. She was very funny in it, so very proud.
Yeah, my kid's coming back and she's singing like the Swahili parts of that one song or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's
I'm like, oh
really
my gosh, like she
yeah,
nails the words. It's
yeah,
funny, man, because
really funny.
everyone wants to sing it. We just don't know the hell it is.
Dang, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, there's a song called Dad of the Year, which is,
Hmm.
dude, the stuff on Slipping Away, the album is, it's relatable to a lot of people. I don't know if you're just probably writing about stuff that you've experienced in your own life, but that's really one of the cool things about music is, sometimes it's relatable to a lot of other, individuals. which is very cool. I remember being young. Somebody asked me what was the first concert that I attended, and it wasn't very cool. I think my folks took me to like a doo-wop revival show. I think it was the Universal Amphitheater. It's different now. I think it's Harry Potter World up by Universal
Oh,
Studios.
right, right.
Yeah. And then, later on, you sort of, form your own tastes and delve into different music and stuff like that. So, there was a lot of classic rock for me growing up. And then you learn, 90s hip hop was a big influence on me. And then you learn about the CBGB era, stuff like that. And you read all the books.
Hmm.
So, what music was around you growing up? And then once you developed your own sort of taste and your own personality, what did you start delving into in your older youthful years?
Well, similar to you, I guess. I mean, I grew up with my dad had a great classic rock sensibility and grew up in, he's a boomer, grew up in the 60s and so we listened to a lot of the Beatles, a lot of Simon and Garfunkel, Cat Stevens, and then,
Hmm.
Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, the Stones, all that great stuff, which I still absolutely love to this day. And we had good classic rock stations growing up. So that was everything up until like middle of high school. I mean, I was an MTV kid, so I would probably like when I was real, like in 12 or something like that, I would be into Bon Jovi and
Hmm.
uh, Def Leppard and all that crap, which I don't like anymore. But it was a time of,
Hmm.
discovering stuff. And then I like the stuff I really ended up liking and stuck with me was like the Matador bands, Pavement and
All
Guided
right.
by Voices and Yo La Tengo, John Spencer Blues Explosion. Um, that was my pocket right there. That felt
Right.
like there was a pretty strong connection to like the Beatles and the Kinks and the Stones in a lot of their music, I thought.
Hmm.
A lot of
Hmm.
very similar, sounds and textures and stuff. So that was where I found my home in the sort of indie rock world.
Right. I interviewed Billy Idol once, and I had to tell him that, back in the day, they had the Cradle of Love video
Yeah.
practically on a loop on
Yeah, that's
MTV.
right.
Dude,
My
you
parents really liked
remember?
some of that 80s stuff too. They loved Billy Idol. They had the Billy Idol early, White Wedding and that stuff.
Yeah.
And the Eurythmics. My parents really, really, we listened to a lot of the Eurythmics. They were like hip to what was going on in the 80s. And I think by the time you get to like early 90s or mid 90s and whatever's popular then, they've now just kind of have not progressed into that. But and
Again, we're talking
gin
to
and juice.
Tim Heidecker here on 88.5, the SoCal Sound. Some shows coming up, the Lodge Room, and then the Casbah in San Diego, and then a show out there in Vegas. And we hope all of those performances goes well. Is there an interactive element between you and the audience at all?
Well, everybody will be wearing Oculus VR rigs. We set everybody up
Hmm,
with those, so they will be able to
great.
enjoy the show in 4D. I mean, interactive, sure. I mean, it's all interactive. The DJ Doug Pound is a comedian who I've been working with for 20 years. He comes out and plays. I do a fair bit of comedy throughout the show. We dip into my funny song catalog and.
Oh, wow.
The whole thing's ridiculous that I'm doing it. I think I try not. It's very embarrassing too to like pretend to be a rock and roller. I think, um, but I try to make fun of that side of it too. And the band is unbelievable. Like everybody in the band is as good as it gets, and we have a lot of fun
It's
together. And
called
it feels like the very good band.
the Very Good Band. Yes.
Yeah. But there's people have always said this. We've been doing this for a few years now. It's like you can tell that we all like each other a lot, and they're not just like back in the shadows. Like they're a big part of the show beyond just
Hmm.
playing. Just personalities shine through.
Love it. You mentioned DJ Doug Pound. I didn't know that he was an actual DJ.
Mm.
I thought he was just someone who appeared in your videos every now and again, but he
Mhm.
is opening up these shows, which is cool, and he's a collaborator with you in Office Hours Live,
Yes.
which is an ongoing thing. It's weekly, correct?
It is weekly. Yeah, it's every Thursday morning on YouTube, and we take calls. And it's sort of I like to say it's like the Howard Stern show without the strippers, and which the Howard Stern show isn't with the strippers anymore either. But it's loose, it's crazy. We have great music. We've had a lot of great music guests come in, and comedians, and it's just 2 hours of goofing around, which is a beautiful salve and a wonderful break from the horrors of the world
Yeah.
for a couple hours. So, yeah, that's
There's yeah,
keeping me busy.
and there's a Patreon up on there for, extra stuff, extra
Yes, I
content.
like just the way you guys have to grovel for supporters. We have to do the same thing. It's the new world, and I'm sure I would just say on your behalf, like now more than ever, because obviously all this stuff is getting cut, and
Yeah.
it's a terrible time for independent voices, I think. But
Yes.
um, it's imperative that people chip in and skip your latte this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I appreciate you saying that. You get it, man. There's also the On Cinema, another thing that you do quite
Yeah.
regularly, to just delving into film, I
Sort
suppose,
of,
right?
yeah. I mean, it's
With
more,
a comedic angle?
yeah, it's a long running in soap opera in the disguise of a movie review show, with many layered characters and storylines, and it's impossible to describe except to say that if you do jump in, you will be very satisfied by it.
Hmm.
It's Greg and I will probably be touring that next year, and we did some shows over in London last week, and it's pretty great. It's a really fun world to dive into if you're looking to dive into a new world.
Cool. On Cinema. And again, the latest record came out last year, late last year. It's called Slipping Away. You'll be playing a bunch of songs off of that and some other
Yeah.
things as well. And again, we got the Lodge Room, I believe, on the 21st, and then down to San Diego at the Casbah,
Yeah.
and then Las Vegas. It's really great to catch up with you every now and again,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
thank you for thinking of me. I'll do it. I'll give you at least once a year. I'll come on and do something if you'll have me.
Yeah, of course. Can't wait to see what's next for you. Good luck on the road, a grueling 3 show schedule.
Yeah, with
But
full court
seriously, it's
press.
back to back to back.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Cool.
Thanks, Mookie. Good talking to you.
Yeah, you got it, man. We are 88.5, the SoCal Sound.